Picture this. You step into an elevator, the doors slide shut, and boom, you realize you're standing right next to a major film producer. They turn to you, knowing you're a filmmaker, and ask that one inevitable question. You literally only have the time it takes to reach their floor to capture their attention. What do you say? Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're uncovering one of the most vital, absolutely high-stakes tools in a filmmaker's arsenal, writing a powerful logline to distill your entire film into just one single sentence.
Okay, let's dive right into this. So, what's your film about? It sounds like such a simple, friendly question, doesn't it? But honestly, in the film industry, your answer to this can absolutely make or break your project. That single sentence you reply with could determine whether that producer wants to sit down and hear more, or if they just politely nod and walk away. That response, right there, is your logline.
So what exactly is a logline anyway? Simply put, it's a super brief summary of your film. We're talking 1, maybe 2 sentences maximum. It has to introduce your main character, their goal, the central conflict, and the stakes. What happens if they fail. Now, a lot of beginners kind of think of a logline simply as a marketing tool, like something you just slap on a poster after the movie is made. But as you'll see, it's actually the fundamental DNA of your story. Everything else in your project grows directly from it.
Now, to see where this fits into the larger picture, think about your whole filmmaking journey. You have your raw idea, you do some research, and you finally choose the story you want to tell. But before you write a synopsis, before you draft a treatment, and long before you type page 1 of your actual screenplay, you write the logline. It basically acts as a compass. As you navigate the massive undertaking of writing a script, that one sentence keeps your story focused from the very beginning all the way to the end.
Moving on to Section 1, the 4 building blocks. So the absolutely crucial point here is that every single logline you write must answer these 4 fundamental questions. Who is the main character? What do they want? What stands in their way? And what are the stakes? If you are missing even one of these, it's like a puzzle with a missing piece, and your story will really lack focus. Let's break these down one by one.
First up, who is the main character? You need to start by introducing your protagonist. But here is the trick. Don't just use their name. If I tell you a story about Allie, you have literally no idea who that is or why you should care. But a young wildlife photographer, instantly you have an image in your head, right? You describe who they are in a way that actually matters to the story, which immediately creates curiosity.
Next up, what does the character want? Every compelling story is driven by a goal. What is your protagonist actually trying to achieve? Are they trying to find a lost child, protect a forest, win a national competition, maybe save a struggling family business? The goal is the engine of your narrative. It gives your story a clear direction, so the audience knows exactly what kind of journey they're going on.
All right, the third block is what stands in their way. Because let's be real, without an obstacle, you simply don't have a story. If your character wants something and just gets it right away, well, the movie's over in 5 minutes and everyone's going to want a refund. Conflict can come from anywhere. It could be another person, a restrictive society, the harsh elements of nature, a ticking clock, or even an internal obstacle like fear or the character's own flaws. That obstacle is what creates tension and keeps us glued to the screen.
And finally, the fourth block. What are the stakes? This answers one simple, kind of brutal question. What happens if the character fails? Will they lose their family, their lifelong dream, their community, their freedom? The higher the emotional stakes, the stronger our investment as an audience. We have to genuinely care about whether they succeed or fail.
Which brings us to Section 2, the logline formula.
Let's move to and see how this builds a complete picture. A standard industry formula generally goes like this. First, when, and you state the inciting incident, when something kicks off the plot. Second, a, and you describe the protagonist. Third, must, you state their goal. And fourth, before, you establish the obstacle or consequence. Now, it's super important to remember this is a guide, not a strict, unbreakable rule. You definitely don't have to force every story to sound robotic. The ultimate goal here is clarity. So let's look at how this actually works in practice. Check out this logline for a documentary. An elderly shepherd races against changing seasons to preserve traditional mountain farming before his family's way of life disappears. Look at how perfectly that hits the blocks. Who? An elderly shepherd. What's the conflict? Racing against changing seasons. What's the goal? To preserve traditional mountain farming. And the stakes? Before his family's way of life disappears. It's perfectly clear, and it immediately makes you want to watch it.
Now here's an example for a fiction film. A shy teenage photographer must overcome his fear of failure to enter a national competition that could change his future.
What's really fascinating here is how the formula adapts perfectly to internal conflicts. The obstacle isn't some supervillain or a ticking bomb, it's his own fear of failure. But it still clearly answers the who, the what, the obstacle, and the high-stakes outcome for his future.
And here is a fantastic one for a short film. After discovering a forgotten letter, a retired postman sets out to deliver it before time runs out. Incredibly concise. It sets up the situation immediately, discovering the letter, introduces a really engaging protagonist, a retired postman, and gives us a great ticking clock element as the conflict. You know exactly what this short film is going to feel like right away.
Moving on to Section 3, Good versus Bad Loglines.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Instead of just a vague situation like a boy lives in a village, which, let's face it, has no goal, no conflict, and absolutely no stakes, watch what happens when we upgrade it. A curious village boy must convince his skeptical grandfather to let him document their disappearing traditions before modernization changes their way of life forever. Suddenly, we have a real movie. We have a specific protagonist, a clear goal, a human obstacle in the skeptical grandfather, and massive emotional stakes regarding their whole way of life.
You know, seeing that transformation really highlights some common beginner mistakes that are totally understandable, but that you definitely want to avoid. First, do not try to tell the entire story. A logline is there to tease and create curiosity, not to reveal every single plot twist. Second, steer clear of vague descriptions. A man or a woman tells us nothing. Give them an identity that hints at the theme of the story. And third, never ever forget the stakes. If there's nothing important to lose, your audience just won't have a reason to care.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how fixing those exact mistakes totally transforms a pitch. We start with the ultimate vague mistake on the left. A man has an adventure. I mean, it means absolutely nothing. But then we give the man an identity, a retired mountain guide. We give him a goal and an obstacle, must lead one final expedition. And we give him massive stakes, to save his village's only water source before winter arrives. It goes from totally forgettable to incredibly focused and intriguing, just like that.
And that leads us to our final part, Section 4, your creative filter. You see, a lot of people think writing a screenplay begins on page 1, but professional filmmakers, they know it actually begins with this one sentence. It tests if you really have a compelling protagonist, a meaningful goal, clear conflict, and emotional stakes. It might sound a bit harsh, but it's a great truth teller. If you can't explain your story in one compelling sentence, your audience is definitely going to struggle to follow it for 90 minutes.
So I really want to leave you with a challenge today. Think about that raw idea bouncing around in your head right now. Look back at the 4 building blocks we covered. Grab a pen and ask yourself truthfully, can you summarize your film in one powerful sentence? Because if you can do that, you just might be ready to write your masterpiece. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy writing.